The night everything broke open was Christmas, and it didn't come quietly. Snow pressed against the diner windows like a crowd of witnesses. The neon sign flickered as if it were tired of pretending, and the smell of burnt coffee clung to the air like a bad memory. I had stepped inside only to escape the cold, but the moment I saw her standing behind the counter with trembling hands and eyes trying not to cry, I knew something heavier than winter had settled in that place. If you believe that kindness still matters, that second chances can change lives, and that one small moment can rewrite an entire future, take a second right now to like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because people like you still believe in doing what's right. Her name was Rachel Morgan, a waitress most regulars barely noticed, even though she had served them faithfully for years. She wore a wrinkled black and white uniform that night, the kind that had been washed too many times but still smelled faintly of soap. Christmas lights were strung around the diner windows, cheap decorations taped crookedly to the walls, but none of that warmth reached her eyes. Earlier that evening, the owner had fired her on the spot for dropping a plate during the dinner rush, ignoring the fact that her hands were shaking because she'd been working double shifts for weeks. No warning, no compassion, no mercy on the coldest night of the year. Rachel had lost her mother the previous spring in Ohio, and her father, Thomas Morgan, had passed away years before from a heart condition. She had moved to a small town in Pennsylvania, hoping for a fresh start, believing that honest work would eventually bring stability. Instead, life kept stacking bills on her shoulders like bricks. Rent was overdue. Her old car barely started. Her younger brother, Caleb, depended on her for support while he tried to finish community college. And now, on Christmas night, she was standing in a diner with nowhere to go and no job to return to. I watched as she folded her apron slowly, each movement careful, as if rushing might finally shatter her. The manager turned his back and disappeared into the office, already done with her existence. Other customers avoided eye contact, suddenly very interested in their plates. I paid my check, but my feet wouldn't move toward the door. Something in me refused to leave her standing there alone, swallowed by the hum of the refrigerator and the quiet cruelty of the moment. Rachel stepped outside, snowflakes catching in her hair, her breath visible in the freezing air. She stood under the flickering streetlight like someone waiting for permission to keep existing. I followed her out, my boots crunching against the ice, heart pounding as if I were the one who'd just lost everything. The words I offered weren't rehearsed or heroic, just honest and heavy with meaning. I told her she deserved better than this, better than being thrown away on a night meant for grace. I didn't know what I could do yet, only that walking away would have been the real failure. She didn't cry at first. Her face stayed composed, as though she had already used up all her tears. She explained how she'd planned to work that night to cover rent, how she had promised Caleb she'd send money before the end of the week, how Christmas had stopped feeling like anything but a deadline long ago. The snow kept falling, soft and relentless, and for a moment the world felt paused, as if waiting to see what would happen next. I offered her a ride. She hesitated, not from fear but from pride, the kind that forms when life has taught you not to expect help. Eventually she nodded. The car heater struggled to keep up as we drove through quiet streets lined with glowing houses, families gathered inside around warmth and food. Rachel stared out the window, shoulders hunched, carrying the weight of disappointment and survival all at once. She lived in a small basement apartment beneath an old brick house owned by a retired schoolteacher named Margaret Collins, a woman who had once told Rachel she reminded her of her younger self. Rachel apologized for the clutter when we arrived, though the place was clean, just sparse. A tiny artificial Christmas tree sat in the corner, unlit, decorations still in the box. She admitted she hadn't felt like setting it up this year, not when everything felt temporary and fragile. That night didn't fix everything. It wasn't a miracle wrapped in tinsel. But it was the beginning of a change Rachel didn't see coming. Over coffee at her small kitchen table, we talked about her skills, her dreams she'd buried under exhaustion. She had once studied baking with hopes of opening a small cafe, something warm and welcoming, a place where people felt seen. The diner job had been survival, not a destination. In the weeks that followed, I kept my promise not to disappear after the moment passed. I helped her rewrite her resume, introduced her to a friend named Michael Harper, who managed a local bakery in New Jersey. Rachel started with early mornings and aching feet, but this time she was treated with respect. She learned recipes, handled customers who smiled back, and slowly, the tension left her shoulders. The bakery owner noticed her dedication and creativity, especially the cinnamon rolls she perfected, soft and rich, the kind that made people close their eyes when they took the first bite. Rachel still struggled. There were nights she cried, quietly, afraid that one mistake could send her back to nothing. But there were also mornings filled with purpose, with flour-dusted laughter and the smell of fresh bread. She sent money to Caleb, who later told her she was the reason he didn't quit school. Margaret Collins decorated the basement apartment with lights that next Christmas, insisting that hope needed to be visible to grow. A year later, Rachel stood behind the counter of a small cafe in upstate New York, co-owned with Michael Harper, her name painted modestly on the window. She hired 2 part-time workers, including a single father named Joshua Reed who needed flexible hours. On the wall hung a simple sign reminding customers that everyone deserves dignity, especially on their worst days. She never forgot that Christmas night. Not the cold, not the fear, but the moment someone chose to stop and see her. That single act didn't just save a job or a week's rent, it reminded her she mattered. It reminded her that being kind wasn't weakness, and that sometimes standing beside someone in their darkest hour was the strongest thing you could do. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you once helped or someone you wish had helped you, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories of hope alive. Before this story ends, I have one special request for you. Please comment below with a simple message about kindness, second chances, or a moment when someone believed in you when you needed it most. Because somewhere tonight, someone like Rachel is standing under a flickering light, wondering if anyone sees them. And maybe, just maybe, your belief will be the reason they keep going.